Hey all, Pixel here from Probable Garage. We're working on some details for the Cyberpunk Cube. So I have pulled the radar unit off the front. This is actually an old amp that I painted, add some details to. One of the things that exists on the cars in the Cyberpunk 2077 game that I always think is really cool is there's flashing lights and various pieces of the equipment on the car. But they're not a fast flash, they're a really slow, like, fade flash, and I don't know why, but I really like that aesthetic. I think it's because it doesn't draw your eye in the same way that a fast, just blink does. It's just, but it gives a feeling of action, of movement, even though nothing is moving. So I've been trying to figure out ways to do that. And there was I did a lot of Googling and a lot of looking, and most of what I was finding were overly complicated solutions of like, get an Arduino and run this code on it and that'll do this, or, use a Raspberry Pi or whatever. And then I found these. I'll try to put a link below if I can find the link again. But this is just a simple chip, like a simple circuit that you input power on one side, and it'll take, I think, from like 3 to 24 volts, and it'll output the same voltage on the other side. There's a common ground and then 3 circuits, and it'll do a slow flash to one, a slow flash to the second, a slow flash to the third. So you can use it either for sequential slow flash, or you can just use it for one slow flash. So that's how I'm going to try and do this. I haven't actually experimented with these yet, so we're going to play with that. And then I was trying to figure out, like, use single LEDs or whatnot. I actually bought a bunch of colored LEDs with little screw-on things. So I might use some of those for some places. And then I discovered the neatest thing that I didn't even know existed. If you've seen the Edison-style LED bulbs that look kind of like this, that filament piece in there, I assumed that was like an L-wire kind of situation, but it's not. There's a strip of incredibly tiny LEDs in there, and then cover over them to give it that uniform color. And it turns out you can buy filament like that. This is actually, the ones in the lamps are solid filament most of the time. This is a flexible filament. So they are absurdly bright. They can be bent in all kinds of directions. Apparently they're pretty strong. Like they're pretty tolerant of being bent and whatnot. They're not tolerant of being bent over and over and over again, but they are tolerant of, like, you can bend them as tight as the tube will, and it won't, you don't risk breaking them and whatnot. So what I'm hoping to do is, see how this has these, like, these 4 indents? I thought it was to put 4 LEDs in there, but what I've been pondering is using these to either in that indent or possibly in these first ribs, like something, a better version of that, something like that on all the sides, and then the whole thing will pulse like it's doing something. Or I may outline these, or I may still use LEDs, but that's going to be one of the spots where I want to have that, like, slow fade, like this is a radar unit that's doing something. So yeah, let's do some experimentation. Let's run some wires and see what happens. So an important thing that I need to work on, like, I got to figure out with this, is a car will run between, it's like 12, I want to say 12.2 or 12.4 volts when it's just running off the battery, and around 14.4 when it's running off the alternator. So that's sort of my power range to be working on. Most LEDs are very tolerant of what amount you can put through it, but the more voltage you put through it, the shorter amount of time it lasts. So like this that I was just running off a 9 volt, that's rated for 3 point something. I can put 9 volts through it, but it'll probably run about a third as long before burning out. So my vague idea with this is, since I have 4 of these. Now I'm worried. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I do have, okay. So I have 4 of these. And I have 4 corners to this thing. 3, 3, 3, 3, 12. They're all 3 point something, but, you know, 12 volt. This doesn't say, of course not. But, you know, 12 point something. That's in range with both what the battery puts out and what the alternator puts out. It'll run a little dimmer just off the battery, but it'll be, I think, within a reasonable range. This chip thing, one of the things they warned with this is whatever voltage you put in is the voltage you get out. So if I put 12 volts in, I can't run just one of these off the other side because it's going to be putting 12 volt off on the other side. So I think if I run those 4 in series, that'll get my voltage where it needs to be. This I'll just be able to run one chip right off of 12 volt. That'll be nice and simple, and I don't have to worry about resistors. The other option is these. These just run 12 volt. You know, these are designed for a car. So these are nice and easy. These require no effort, no resistor. And if I'm running multiple ones, I'll just run them in parallel. How much do I have of each color? I literally don't remember how many of these I have of each color. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So part of the, I can't remember how many of these I ordered, is I ordered a bunch from one company and they literally never filled my order. Okay. So I have 4 each of those, so I could absolutely put an LED in each of these. I think a lot of it's going to come down to, like, you know what? Do I have enough to... Okay, so actually, now that I look at it, I can do 2 of these little pieces with one of these, which means I'd only use 2 of them. The LEDs would also probably work. I think what I need, I need to take one of these chips and solder some wire to it so that I can test with it and see how it works. I have this little setup, which is actually really, I find this entertaining as heck. The blue LEDs that I put in the front grille has had this as like a display thing, basically, of like, hey, look how bright these are, which I find really entertaining because it's actually 2 9 volts in series, so they were pumping 18 volts through it. So of course, it's going to look even brighter than it does in the car. But I think I can either run just a solo battery or off of this as close enough for testing because I don't have anything that puts out a nice neat 12 volts without ripping a battery out of one of the cars. So, problems. Trying to figure out how to get the wire attached to this. And because I was lazy, I was like, oh, I'll just use the torch. That doesn't work. I can't keep it on there in a way that I can also put any solder on it or a wire, because I need it propped up and I don't have a way to prop it up here because like I can't go clamping it in the vise, it'll just break it. It also cooks the board, you know, pretty hot. And then I'm like, well, fine, I'll stop being lazy, I'll go get my soldering iron. Ace Disperov. Can't find it anywhere. Thought I knew which box it was in, isn't there. Tore part of the house apart. Can't find it. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll use the plastic welding torch that I was using to try and fix the flare on the van. Yes, you haven't seen that video. Oh, ooh, never mind. It just took forever to get hot. I was about to say, but it didn't get hot enough. But no, it just took its sweet. Let's see, will you? Or are you just mocking me? All right, let's try this again. All right, I forgot to turn the camera. I forgot to turn the camera on when I came back out here. I took one of these and added some wire to it, and just about to double check it, and yep, still works. So I use these little solder stick type connectors, which worked okay, but then I wrapped them in a little bit of heat shrink tubing to just give it strength at that joint. Not quite sure how I'm doing this, or if I'm doing this, or what, but it seemed useful to have something like that. I'm now regretting that though, because I may have to... I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to mount anything to this. That's the part I'm still having issue with. What I've actually been thinking about is, instead of trying to do the whole circuit of this, if I drill 4 holes in the corners, I can just run, you know, it'll be looped inside, but visually it'll be across here, across here, across here, and across here. And I think I can get that to lay nice and clean and straight without the corners being bunched up weird or whatever. And I think that'll be an easier way to do this than trying to do it with wrapping it into the space and getting it to try and figure out how to stay there. And I think that I will have just long enough amount. Yeah, I have just enough, it looks like, that I'll be able to do that without it being too difficult. The hardest part is going to be here, where there's a giant piece that's the leg. So that hole's just going to take a little bit more effort to drill. But I think that's what I'm going to do, is drill out the 4 corners of one of these, feed it through, see what it looks like, go forward from there. All right, so I got this all mounted up. I basically drilled holes in the 4 corners and fed it. You can see in, around, over, and then added wires to the end of it. And I just noticed I have a corner that doesn't have any real... I did my best to try and smear every joint, as well as actually stuffed the end of, I'm using zip ties, the end of it in there to get some in the the hole itself. And then on this side, I put a little bit at the center of each one, laid them down, wiped off as much as I could off the top of the stuff, and then taped them all down, and hopefully that'll get them to stay pretty well. And if it gets them to be more or less right, I can come back in, put more behind it, wipe it down, stick it down a second time. And I've tested them, and they all still light up. Let me see if I've got the two ends of the same wire here. So that is all wired up. Two of these alone, that's only around 6 volts, so I am going to still have to put in a resistor. I do have some resistors from an old project, so I just have to teach myself how to read resistors again to figure out which ones are the ones I need. And then these will get run in parallel and hooked up to one of those boards. What I've decided to do with those boards, if I can find it again. Ah, here we go. So, hoping this fits. Okay, this doesn't fit, but I think I have some that will. My plan is to sleeve this in, once I get everything soldered onto it. I was trying to make a joint better, and I actually got this, popped this one off. It's okay because this is not the final setup here. But my plan is to, if I can find my large, oh, here we go. These are the ones. I knew I had some bigger ones. The basic idea is once I get everything on it, what I'm going to do is put a little bit of hot glue on the joints and then wrap the whole thing kind of like this, and then heat shrink it down to kind of lock everything together. And I think that'll do a reasonably good job to protect that against vibration. Yeah. I need to leave this alone because I need to give all this a chance to dry. If I keep messing with the wires and whatnot, it's going to end up not setting properly in places because I'm going to move the ends around too much. So it's like 9 o'clock at night, so I'm going to leave this overnight to dry, cure, whatever the hell the right word is. And I'm going to come back out here and do the final wiring. Another day, and I got the jankiest setup ever. So this is the battery out of the olds, hooked up to a battery charger, because the battery charger will only output voltage if it detects a battery. So I can't just use that as a source of power. And I don't have anything else easy to produce a useful amount of power. With that hooked up, I've got 14.4 volts here, which is the same as a car running with its alternator going. So I'm going to use that to figure out resistors, because I was doing some research and I remembered resistors are a pain in the ass. So I'm lazy, so I'm digging this out. I've got a bunch of random resistors in here, and I'm going to see what gets me down to a useful voltage. I literally don't remember what's in here. And we're going to go from there, because LEDs are decently tolerant, so I'm not going crazy. Geez, I got Radio Shack ones in here. That's how long this stuff's been hanging around. That's funny. Anyway, yeah. I'm going to just stick some resistors in there, see what I end up with, see if I like that voltage, and then go forward from there. All right, after a bunch of experimentation, every single resistor in there is too big. I don't know what I was using them for, because maybe I was using them for solo LEDs, but all of them make them this massively too dim. Ironically, the one that's the right resistance, a useful resistance, is these, which are the turn signal resistors I bought. So I guess I'm using one of those. Seems like the biggest, all of those, this came out actively dim. see if I can turn this so you can see it better. So hopefully everything's still connected. So that's, you can see how absurdly bright that is. If I put this in line, that's still bright, but a usefully bright amount that doesn't feel like I'm going to burn those things out instantaneously. This is probably even too much of a resistance, because if you figure these are supposed to be in a light bulb, so you know that's not an unreasonable brightness for a light bulb, but I would rather not risk overcooking them. So what I just did there, what have I done? What have I, something's gone wrong. Oh, things come unhooked. Okay, scared myself. All right, so what I'm going to do is, this is going to get mounted in here with some double-sided tape. I'm actually going to mount it between the two things. Yeah, I'm basically going to wire, you know, this one into the resistor and out to that one. Just, oh, maybe whatever. These are all going to get hooked together. This is going to get glued into place, and then I'm going to get out the, I'm going to fire up the soldering iron, grab another one of these, the little boards, and wire that in series. Oh no, that's got to go before everything. So these are going to get wired into that, then leads are going to get wired onto that. They're going to go out to the car in general. This is going to get protected with more heat shrink tubing, and then this should be done and ready to go back in the car and get just wired to a regular power source. So I messed up somehow, somewhere, and I'm not quite sure what I did. Testing this all with stuff twisted together, it gave me the, you know, brightness I wanted and whatnot. And then somehow in the course of hooking this all up, I did something to this side, and now there's like a quarter, not even a quarter, a tiny little bit that lights up down here and nothing else. That's a joint I made before, and I haven't really torqued it or anything. Like, I actually made sure that the wires come out as straight as possible. But this stretch no longer lights up, even though it still transmits power, but it's also clearly got something wrong with it because it's sucking down enough power that it makes the other side super dim. And I don't know quite what's going on. I've even tried, like, I've been hooking stuff up different ways, you know, going back to twisting stuff together. Nope, and I just broke that side. Okay, you know what? If these broke like this at this stage, vibration and hitting bumps is gonna F them. This looks really cool, especially lit up, but it's definitely not got the durability I need. This one broke because I was trying to strip this end over here. This end just broke because it decided to break. So I think even if I replaced both of these with the other two that I have, unless I like glued every single bit of it down and prayed constantly, I think they would just end up breaking in fairly short order. So I need to change my plan. As cool as these are, they're clearly not rated for automotive purposes. So what I'm going to end up having to do is grab those the amber LEDs, and I'm going to put the LEDs in the four corners instead, which bums me out massively. But it is what it is, and I'm glad I found out now and not. I'm really glad it broke now, because this sucks. But I can't imagine how much more it would suck if I finished, and I thought I was finished, just to be clear, but how much it would suck if I finished everything, reinstalled it on the car, you know, got everything all hooked up to the car's electrical system and everything, and then had it immediately fail. That's, be able to reuse that. That's why I put the coating on it. But yeah, I genuinely am. I'm bummed. I'm really, really bummed. This makes me very sad. But I'm also incredibly grateful that it failed here on the bench and not after install. Among other things, it probably would have confused me a lot to try and figure out what the hell had gone wrong before I bothered to tear it all back apart again. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is rip all this stuff back out again. Get in here with something to get all the JB Weld off, which didn't stick very well to this either because it's a little too flexible, and kind of just let the JB Weld pop off of it. So yeah. I was trying these because they seemed like they were going to be more durable than the other options, like, because I'd thought about doing this with this kind of thing with L-wire, but I know L-wire is fragile as hell in its own way. So yeah, this has got me super bummed because this looked so cool. All right, sprayed this with a fresh coat of gray because scraping all that stuff out really messed it up. So that's going to have to dry overnight before I can mess with it. Holes are drilled for the lights. Yeah, should be pretty easy at this point because those lights are designed for 12 volts. So I can just wire them all together in parallel, hook them to the little control board, and then I'm done. So, having accomplished nothing except discovering how fragile those are, I think I'm going in for the night, and I will pick this up again tomorrow. Did a little work off camera. I actually painted this with yellow and then black with the plan of wiping the black off, but it didn't work. So I put some more black on. It's not perfect. I'm going to come in here with a brush and get all the details because it just wasn't going on well and I didn't want to put 5 more coats to try. But I also put these 4 in. They're not wired up yet, but they're in. So my plan is basically I'm going to group these 2 together and these 2 together, connect them by a wire and connect that to the little board. And that should work fine. And then we'll be basically done and ready to install this. All right, I hooked everything up, connected the wires to the battery, and the 4 lit up, but they didn't pulse. Now, all that weirdness I was having with the other one with the line, the wire stopped working and whatnot, I may have effed up that board in the process. I don't know, but I'm working under that theory right now because it's the easiest theory because I got 5 of these little suckers. So the torch is heating up, and I'm going to solder the power wires onto this, hook it up to the battery, touch the wires of this onto it, and see whether it works. And if it doesn't work, I'll know 4 LEDs may be too much. And these are all in parallel, so they are drawing a higher amp load, but they're still LEDs, so it's a really low amp load. So this thing should still be able to handle it, but you know, who knows. All right, new board, wired up. It's not quite hot enough, so the soldering sucks, but works well enough to check it. Connect positive to the correct positive side. Correct the negative to one of the negatives. Now this is interesting. Is it too much for the board to handle? Okay, that's interesting. Can only assume I've got too much amperage? Huh. Because I hooked up 2 of them before. The other one is still over there somewhere. It's got the blue, 2 of the blue ones on, and it worked fine. Didn't seem to care. Individual ones don't care. Yeah, I did. I literally hooked the wire. Has that been the problem the whole time? These feeds have been on the wrong one? So did I literally do that somehow without noticing? Oh my god, I might be the dumbest person alive. Okay, so these are now hooked up. Red is hooked up to positive. Black is hooked up to negative. That's what these match. Now I take these and I hook... Oh, that's fascinating. Oh my goodness. So it'll power, if you run the power to this chip backwards, it will light the LEDs. Like it must have a diode in it or something. Somehow it'll light the LEDs, but it won't do the fade. If you hook it up correctly, it'll fade. Wow, that's fascinating. I have no idea how that would, like, why would that work, basically? Come on, yes! Haha! Did it. It works. All right, so this is assembled. It functions. All of my connections have got some attempt at waterproofing. I got plenty of extra wire to hook it up. So time to reinstall this. The back panel of this is still on the car because it's got the fake wires and hoses attached to it, so it's easier to just leave it behind. So that's ready to be installed, so I'm going to set that aside. Now I've got this. This goes, I'll just put a picture up here on the car. Those 2 big connector things go to these. When I built this the first time around, the only thing I had for aluminum was this diamond plate, so I used that, but it sucks. It's not flat, it looks kind of weird. So since then, I've gotten some more sheet aluminum by taking something apart. So my plan is to disassemble this and then reassemble it with, like, take this diamond plate out, cut another panel the same, more or less, so I can build it with that, and then we're going to add some more lighting because there's these little slots here. So I think if I'm careful, I can cut a piece of plastic or 2, glue them in there, like with the back scuffed so that you can't actually see in here, because all you can see is the cutoff ends of these connectors and a bunch of screws. And then stick one of the green LEDs in there with another one of these circuits. All right, made a plate. I ended up cutting that lip off because it didn't work well. Now I've got to go through and do the fit up in here. I was going to try and re-drill all the holes, but my new plate's just enough of a different shape than the old one that that's not going to really work. So I think what I'm going to do is attach it with Tech screws, including these things, and then pull those out and put a better piece of hardware in than a cheesy Tech screw. Probably just the screws that were in there before. Alright, so there we go. A little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer, looks better. I think I'm going to pull this apart and repaint it just because the aluminum's going to go weird. But yeah. Alright, I've stuck bits of plastic in there, but they don't want to stay in place while they're drying because this cheap knockoff JB Weld I'm using doesn't have any stickiness to it, for lack of a better word. Trying to figure out the best solution for light in there, because I tried shining one of these in there and it's very, very directional. I might be able to put two going like this, but that seems like a lot of work. I don't quite know what else I've got at this point. Much of this is blue and red, I know, and I'd rather have green there. But I guess I'll figure that out tomorrow because I can't do anything more tonight anyway. I do have more of this stuff. I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right, new day. I actually worked a little off camera just because it wasn't very interesting. Mounted this with new screws and bolts, ran the wiring up and back here, changed the connector that was a 3-pin that was running these. That's been changed to a 4-pin with the power wire for these lights on the new pin and the ground on the ground, you know, shared with the other grounds. So this part's all done. Again, nothing exciting. Still nothing exciting I'm going to show you, but going through here, doing the same thing I've been doing, which is this is a wire that was already run from my switch panel. I've split it off. I'm about to put the connectors on, and then this is the front wiring, this is the rear wiring. In the front, I had to match that I had connected it to the unused orange wire, which is this one, so it's going to go in the end here. On these, what I've been doing is working my way over, so it's going to go into this one, so that in the back, where I've already got the other half of this already connected, I just know I need to go to the next connector. So all my extra work before is now paying off, because this is way easier than running wires to the back and blah blah blah. So yeah, once I connect these pins and connect the connectors back together, I should be able to put a fuse in the fuse block under the number 6 position, which is what those green wires are connected to up there, and then that front should work. So I'll catch you when I'm at that point. Okay, I don't know how well the camera's going to pick this up, but it is lit up and it does do the pulse thing. I am disappointed that it only spends a very short amount of time off. I would like it if it was sort of equal, I guess. It also would be nice if it was consistent. It does seem to, like, sometimes it does the slow fade like that, and sometimes it'll do, and like the next cycle through it'll do a quicker blink, or sometimes it does a quicker blink. So, not perfectly what I was looking for, but very close, and until I find a better solution, that'll work. The nice thing is, because it's just that little board, if I do find something else that gives me the better blink cycle I want, I can just go in there, clip that board out, solder or whatever the new component in, and move on. You know, because it's not, like, I didn't run a bunch of wires to separate stuff and whatnot. So, we're going to be happy with that. All right, a little later. This, I want to put green LEDs in here. We've been through the problems with these not mounting well and these being super fragile. So my temporary solution is this. These are green, just plain LEDs. Each one runs about 3 volts, so I've ganged them together. They're literally ganged together just using the shrink wrap tubing to hold them on. This is a very temporary solution. I'm going to order some green strip lights like these. Those are red. So this is just to work for now. And the reason for this is these are going to be useful somewhere else, so I don't want to potentially mess them up mounting them in some janky solution. And these might be useful somewhere else, so I don't want to mount them in a janky solution. I have bags of solo LEDs that have been hanging around for over a decade. So they're unimportant. And if I mess these up, who cares? So this is going to get like taped or something in there, you know, to work for now. I need to attach another wire. I need to run them to the little chip, and I need to run wiring off of the chip and mount the chip permanently in here. And then I can put this back on the car and do the car side wiring. So I'm going to do all of that, and I'll catch you later. All right. There we go. Works. I'm going to wrap up the little control panel like I did the other ones to protect it. And then this is ready to go in the car, at least for now. New day and install time. So this is going to go back up in here, you know, roughly like that. And then I've got to run the wiring for it down. And I stuck the blue lights under here. I've been trying to find a blue light, a small one to fit over here. I haven't found one. So I'm skipping that for the moment. This is all just kind of shoved under here because I had to take the car somewhere yesterday. But the 2 strips are under there. What I'm going to do is run extra wiring and just cap it off. And then when I do find a blue light to hide under this one, I'll change that. You know, I'll add it to it. This is on this, but obviously I'm not going to be using that. So I have a wire from the front to the back connector specifically for the blue lights, and I have another one specifically for the fader light. So I need to basically make a wiring harness that has these on it, that has a disconnect, so that if I take the back of the car apart, I can disconnect those wires. And then I've got to run those wires from outside to inside to that other connector, and then we'll be done. All right, and we are good. Blue lights in, light up properly. Green lights are in over here. They're doing their fade thing. Not like optimally green, but again, I got janky solution in there right now. It's going to be swapped out later. What I did, this is the wiring from this. It comes into its own connector. So if I have to take this off, that's separate. That goes, the 3 wires, the 2 from this and the 1 spare one that's just hanging out over here, that's going to be for there, go in. They all go into a connector. I don't know how well you can see that connector right towards the middle there. That 3-1, they all share a ground, and then 2 wires, you know, and then the 2 wires to the 2 separate circuits. The ground just goes to a sheet metal screw screwed into the body. Not the best solution, but I can always upgrade it later. The other 2 wires come inside, they go through over here, they come into this connector that has the other one. Thing I leveled up on, I discovered that you can get heat shrink tubing for the Brother label maker that I use. So these are now labeled with heat shrink tubing instead of with a piece wrapped around that always falls off. So that's going to be good going forward. I'm going to have the ability to really upgrade my game. Unfortunately, this isn't really easy to fix because I'd have to take everything off and blah, blah, blah. But I might... Oh, shit. Well, considering that one just fell out, maybe I will be doing it sooner. But anyway, yeah, that's done. I need to finish connecting this connector properly, but wiring-wise, I'm all set. Now I'm just on cleanup. Super happy with this. Like, I finally got the blue lights in back here that I've been wanting to get in for a while. got that in. It's doing more or less the thing I wanted to do. The fade, like I said on the front, it's not quite what I want, but it's close enough for now. Ditto for those aren't quite the LEDs I want, but they're close enough for now. Yeah, really happy with this. Like that upgrade to the box there. Now it's doing something. Again, it's just another cool detail. So yeah, I gotta finish cleaning up the back there, but I'm basically done, and I'm really happy with that. Once again, cool fade effects. I've got a couple more of those. I want to add some more. Haven't quite figured out what yet. I think I'm at the point now where when I start doing some 3D printed or custom built things to screw onto the body, like beyond what I've been, you know, like start making custom pieces, that's definitely going to be a thing that I'm going to want to integrate into it when I can. So very happy with all of that. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.